Okay, so everyone should be seeing my screen. Should see the information center in the middle there and some favorites in the upper left-hand corner. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to jump right into sales order entry and just show a few different scenarios of the credit card processing and ACH. One thing that I want to mention specifically about Sage 100, which is nice about this project, is that everything that you're seeing is all standard Sage 100, except for the periodic Zeemster screens, pop-up screens that show. Everything is all standard. So this is, especially a nice transition for a company who's using Sage 100 and possibly another processor that wants to switch over to Fortis. It would be a nice seamless move for them. Very low learning curve. Almost invisible. It's just in the background. So that's one thing that was really great about this, about the Sage 100 piece, the Sage 100 demo, is that it's all standard screens. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a few scenarios. I have some predefined transactions. So I'm going to jump right into number one. This is going to be an order that is set up for $1. And what we want to do here is we just want to pre-authorize this credit card. So when we go to the total screen, we specify that it's credit card. We're going to pick our existing card that we have on file. We're going to use the V1. Pulls in our information. It's already set to payment right over here, which for Sage 100 means pre-auth during sales order entry. So at this point, I click the submit button and it pre-authorizes that credit card. I'm going to hit accept and go back in and do another one, number two. This is for $2. Okay, again, we're going to do a credit card. We're going to use our card on file. So I'm going to do my lookup. You can pick V1. You can type it in. Okay, in this case, we want to just do a partial deposit on this particular order. I'm going to specify deposit. Big fat 50 cents. We hit submit. And it authorizes the credit card for 50 cents. I'm going to hit accept, and I'm going to go into another one, number three. This is for $3. We specify credit card. We're going to use our on-file card. Now this one, we're going to do a partial deposit and pre-authorize the balance. And standard Sage 100, all that you do is specify the deposit. And when you want to pre-authorize the balance, you simply click that checkbox. Upon hitting submit, we get our deposit authorized and our pre-auth for the balance all at once. Nice and seamless. I'm going to do a few more transactions. Number four, this is for $4. This is also going to be a credit card, but this one we're going to do a pre-authorization for a card that's not on file, just a one-time card. And in this scenario, we don't want to save it. Okay, so we can bypass our standard payment ID field and go right to our payment type. And in this case, we're going to pick credit card. Okay, it's already set for pre-authorization, and I'm going to hit my submit button. This time it's going to pull up our Zeemster screen to prompt us for our credit card information. Okay, we can also edit our address information. At this point, we hit submit. And it pulls in our credit card information right over here on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, we have our pre-authorization. I'm going to hit accept. I'm going to do another one. Number five for $5. Still a credit card transaction. Still going to just do a one-time card without saving it. So it's a credit card type. This one we want to do a partial deposit. So we'll do 56 cents. We hit submit Again, because this is a one-time not on file card, it prompts us for our credit card information. And we specify our expiration, our address, and submit. Brings back our credit card information on the left-hand side and authorizes the 56 cents to the credit card. Another one, number 6. For $1.06, still a credit card transaction. Again, not on file, just a one-time, so we bypass our payment ID. And this one, we're going to do a partial deposit with paying the balance by credit card. Again, Sage 100, you simply check the checkbox for pay balance to authorize, pre-authorize the balance. We hit submit. Again, it prompts for our credit card information. And we submit. This time, we're going to get our authorized deposit and our pre-authorized balance. Nice and quick. Okay, before I jump into Zeemster, just to into the portal, just to show you the results of those entries, I'm going to do one more. This is number 7. Okay, this is for $1.07. Now this time we're going to do this as an ACH. So on my total screen, I specify ACH. And then out here, looks just like the credit card screen. In this case, we're doing a one-time not on file. So I'm going to bypass payment ID and specify this is an ACH type. Okay, ACH is just one option for payment. We hit submit and we're prompted for our bank information. Slightly different Zeemster screen. So we populate our information. Ending with, excuse me, 9575. The other information you see here is specific to the client, which would be set up with the client initially, which would determine what information is required when processing ACH. For the purpose of this example, we're just leaving everything as default. I hit submit. And what you'll notice is on the left-hand side, we have our bank information, including Bank of America, based on the routing automatically, and our bank information. And that's it. The transacting in this particular scenario, ACH, does not happen until invoicing. So I hit accept. And we just have those 7 orders that we entered. So now I'm going to shoot over to the Zeemster portal. Just going to log in. First thing that I want to do is go over to the account vaults. Okay, and you'll notice that I already have this predefined to show us only cards ending with a 12/25 expiration date, specifically for the purpose of this demonstration. So you can see that here are the 3 that I created, specific to the one-time credit cards where we bypassed the card ID and just simply specified it was a one-time. So this is the card information. It shows it in the vault. Related to the ACH, okay, I'm just using my filters at the top so I can very easily show you the results of my entries. And here's the 9575 ACH transaction. That's the last 4 of the account number, and it says ACH. Okay, next I want to shoot over to the transactional screen, which we go over to locations, and we're using Rob's personal location, highly sensitive, and we go over to the transaction screen. Okay. Just find where our first one is. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, this was the first transaction that I did, and here's the sales order number, number 1. Okay, that was a pre-auth for $1.01. It says auth only over on the right-hand side. Authorization for number 1. The second one was a deposit for 50 cents. That shows it's a deposit for that order. That one says approved. The next one was a partial deposit and a pre-auth, and we have the deposit for 52 cents. I'm sorry, 51 cents. And then we have the pre-auth for the balance, which is the $1.04, and that says auth only. Okay, and then we have the same transactions that we did for the one-time cards. Okay, this one up here, this was the one-time card for the partial deposit of 59 cents, and that says approved. And then we have our pre-authorization for the balance of the 47 cents, and that says auth only. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, we'll have time for the end for questions at the end as well. Okay, I'm going to come back over to my Sage 100 system, and now I just want to show you some of the invoicing process. So I'm going to go over into sales order invoice data entry. Okay, what we want to do with these is we're just going to invoice a couple of those sales orders. For these, we're going to use the next sequential invoice number. And for the first one, we want to specify we want order number 2. Okay, if we go to the lines, we tell it standard Sage 100 that we're shipping it complete. Over on the totals, it's already set for credit card, and the payment screen is already set for credit card. This was the one that we did a partial deposit, and there it is, 50 cents. We hit accept, and that one's queued up, ready to go. We're going to do another one. We're going to invoice order number 3, okay, which had the partial deposit and the pre-auth for the balance. Okay, we go to the lines just to simply say we're shipping complete, and we go to our credit card screen or our payment screen, and we see our partial deposit and our pre-auth. We hit accept, and that's queued up. I'm going to do another one. This one is for order number 4, which was the one-time card for just a pre-auth. Yes, we're shipping complete. We go to the payment screen, and there's our pre-auth. And we hit accept, and that one's queued up. We'll do one more here for order number 7, which was the ACH. Same process, still shipping complete. The total screen does say ACH, as does the payment screen. There's our information. We hit accept, and we're queued up. Excuse me, I apologize for the sniffles. Okay, so that is the process for invoicing sales orders. Now, in this scenario, we're not going to, the credit card processing would complete upon posting going through the posting process in Sage. For that purpose, we're going to hold off and do that during the AR invoicing. Okay, but before we do that, I'm going to show you just a couple other invoicing transactions. And the next two, these two are going to be for what are called one-step invoices in Sage 100. And these are just basic invoices without referencing a sales order. Okay, we have 2 queued up. If I remember which numbers they were. Number 8. Okay, this is for $1.08. Now, again, we're not referencing our sales order. We're just doing a one-time, a one-step invoice. Okay, same process. We're specifying credit card. And this one, we're just going to use our on-file card for a pre-auth. V1, it's already set for payment, which is pre-auth. Submit, and we get our pre-auth. And that one's queued up for invoicing and posting. We'll do the next one, which is number 9. This one's a new card, just for deposit only. We're not referencing a sales order. Line's already defined for $1.09. Credit card, since it's a one-time, not saving it, we're going to bypass payment ID. It's a credit card type. And this one's just going to be for a deposit, 60 cents. Okay, it's a one-time new card, so it's prompting us for our credit card information. Submit. Okay, we get our authorization. It's queued up. And like I said, the next step would be to generate your invoices, print your invoices, go through the posting process, and complete your credit card processing routine, which happens automatically in the background. Is there any questions at this point? I'm happy to field any questions before I move on.
Hey, Brett, it's Rob Alden.
Hi.
Thank you. Thanks for doing this. Just for peace of mind with me. So let's say a customer does not have integrated solutions. What are the, like, I'm trying to draw pain points. So let's say they don't have a card, like it's not integrated. They have a standalone with a bank using something separate. Are there multiple steps they have to go through? Or is it just as easy as accepting a credit card like you just did?
You're talking about the client?
A client, a customer using Sage 100 is not integrated with us for credit cards. They're doing standalone. They're like, they have a little credit card machine next to their desk.
Mm-hmm.
How many more steps do they have to do? I mean, obviously they have to swipe the card, but do they have to go in and then like update records with the card information, or I'm just trying to get some pain points. So if I'm talking to a customer that's not integrated, I can say, you know, I know that you probably do this, 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 this. Wouldn't it be helpful if you just did this? So I don't know if that made sense to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, the switchover should be pretty straightforward. I mean, granted, they're not going to have any of their existing credit card information in Sage 100.
Yep.
Although there are importing options, or just
no, I'm just saying I'm just saying, what is the procedure? Let's say I don't have integrated credit card right now. What does the person do to accept a payment into Sage 100 from an outside source? Like I swipe a card for $100, and then do I go into the account and do a bunch of steps? Or is it, I mean, I'm just trying to see what extra steps are involved for them not being integrated. I mean, you might not know that. It might be a case by case how the customer does it, but
yeah, well, I think it is going to be a case by case basis, depending on how they're currently doing it. If they're using a terminal, if they're just using the web, if they're using some sort of piece of software. But generally speaking, if they're using a non-integrated solution, they still have to process the credit card, whether they type in the credit card or swipe it.
Okay.
But then after that point, they're still going to have to go into their accounting system and enter those transactions
manually. Yeah.
Manually. Whereas with the integrated solution, it's doing it all for you.
Everything's done automatically. So how many steps would you say? Not to dwell on this and keep people on it. Are there multiple steps?
I'm sorry?
Are there multiple steps that person would have to do? Like, what records do they manually have to update? Everything?
Well, you don't have to update anything, quite honestly. I mean, updating the customer credit card records is optional. You don't have to store that information in the system.
Yep.
So, I mean, really, it would depend on the type of transaction that they're doing. But if you're just talking about a regular sales order and just pre-authorizing it, I mean, it's kind of like a 2-3 step process.
Okay, perfect.
There's really not much to it.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so that was sales order invoicing. So we're going to move over to accounts receivable invoicing. which is very, very straightforward. Not as involved as sales order invoicing, just by the nature of the function inside Sage 100. So I'm just going to shoot right into AR invoice data entry. In case you're wondering, the primary difference between AR invoice data entry and sales order invoice data entry in Sage is the sales order invoicing allows you to invoice inventory items, whereas with AR you're limited to miscellaneous. That's the primary difference. Okay, so in this case, what we want to do is we want to use one of our saved transactions, which is invoice number 10, which is set up for $1.10. And what we want to do here is we basically just want to hit the credit card for this particular transaction. Okay, you'll notice on the total screen there is no option to specify the payment method because that's how the screen works. You go over to payment. Screen looks very similar to what we just saw in the sales order module. And for this one, we want to use our saved card, so we can go ahead and just pick it. Brings in all our information, and we hit accept. Okay, card was authorized. It's queued up for posting. We do the next one, number 11. It's for $1.11. And on the payment screen, this time we want to do a one-time card without saving it. So we can bypass payment ID, specify it's a credit card payment type. We hit accept. It knows we need to enter the credit card information and prompts us. Submit. Okay, that one closed a little quick because I had hit the accept button. If I go back in, you'll see that it was authorized and queued up. Okay, so these two invoices are ready to go. So let's show the rest of it all the way through. We've entered our invoices, we've printed them. Let's go ahead and post. So I'm going to run my sales journal. This is again just standard Sage 100 functionality. Okay, we get our standard sales journal, which does show the credit card information, some credit card information. And we post. Okay, we can jump back into the Zeemster portal. We'll refresh our transaction screen. And now we have our two additional transactions that we just did, which was $1.10, which is a payment for invoice 10. And that was approved all the way on the right-hand side. Same with the next one, $1.11. Same information. Okay, very streamlined. Okay, the next thing that I want to show you is just over on the customer side. So I'm going to jump over to customer maintenance. I'm going to call up our first existing customer. And I want to create a new credit card. So I go to the additional screen into the credit card screen. Again, all standard Sage 100. We specify our payment type. Give it a payment ID, which is an arbitrary code, unique code specific to that payment type or that payment record. I'm just going to use today's date and hit add new. At this point, it prompts us with our credit card for our credit card information. Creating a new card on file. Hit submit and it brings back our credit card information into Sage 100 and into the portal. Let's say I want to edit that one. For example, if I need to change the expiration date, same screen. From the payment ID, I can just pick my payment ID, 0125, brings in the information and allows me to click edit in the upper right. Brings it up and I can simply change my expiration as needed, submit, updates it here, and I would hit accept to save my changes. Very easy process. And the last thing that I want to show you is just in repetitive invoice entry, which this is related to the setup of repetitive invoice entry. So nothing really happens. We're just basically assigning a payment record to our existing repetitive, sometimes called recurring. So I'm just going to call up. We have an F1 transaction and an F2 transaction. Okay. Again, this is just for the setup. We're just specifying how these recurring invoices are going to be paid. So when we go over to our payment screen, we can specify that this one is going to use the save card. All my information. All I do is hit accept. Again, it's just for the setup. And then I pick my other reference, F2. That's my other transaction. That one I believe is for $1.02. And this one we're going to use a one-time card. So we'll bypass payment ID, specify it's a credit card type. And when we hit accept, we'll be prompted for our credit card information one more time. Hit submit. And now those two transactions, I'm just going to pull them back up. F1, if I go to the payment screen, it's coded for the credit card information, and same with F2. And that concludes my portion of the demo. I'm happy to answer any other questions, and at the same time, turn it over to Todd, and he can continue on with some of the setup screens.
Great, thanks, Brett. Did anybody have any questions for Brett before he mutes himself there? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. You should see that coming up. All right, and it is showing. So from here, we're going to do the first part of setting up Fortis Pay's integration, which is once it's been installed, is to actually turn it on. This is going to be controlled on the company level. Sage 100 has one or more companies, and the integration can be configured per each company. To configure the company, we'll go to the Library Master, here, Main and Company Maintenance. Once in Company Maintenance, we'll go ahead and select the company that we want to turn on the payment processing. In this case, we're going to use ABC Demo Data. So I can look it up and select it. And then when we click on ABC, we see it's a mirror of what the default functions are within Sage for credit card processing, which is nice because it allows the users that are already familiar with this process to easily adapt to the Fortis Pay's integration. In this case, we're going to go to payment, so they'll know that's usually where they'll go. And we can click on it to be enabled for either both credit cards, ACH, or just credit cards or just ACH. Once you've selected that, you have some other additional fields that can be selected, and you get you can turn on or off the debug log or debug display. The log is going to write a file into the Mass90 home folder that will display each one of the calls and the responses from the calls. Now, the active debugging display will actually prompt with a display as you go through the steps on the screen to be able to show those, so you don't have to jump back and forth to the log. Now, if we take a look at one of those, just to show you an example, this is the log file that you can see. Now, in the log file, you'll notice it displays the request and the response, like I'd said, and it will note the user's login and the workstation name. So this is handy for the date, time, and login to troubleshoot what's going on and who was doing it. We've obscured the sensitive data like the user ID, the app key, the developer ID, and so that way in the log file you won't see those being listed. but you will be able to see what type of information is being sent, what type of information is being returned back. So that will help as we go through and support the product to be able to resolve issues as quickly as possible. Now, after we've set up our company maintenance, we are going to go into payment type maintenance under AR, payment type maintenance, and we're going to pull up an existing payment type. In this case, I'm just going to do credit card, and we'll see that the card information, the top part is all basic within Sage 100, telling it what account to use and things like that. But down at the bottom, we have the gateway settings, and that's where we're going to put in the information that's given to them when they're onboarded for the user ID, the user key, and the user hash. Now, once you put in this user key and user ID, it allows the system to go out and find what locations are available to that user ID. In this case, if I switch over to location A, we'll notice that this changes to the service and changes the valid processor. So now it doesn't see that it's valid because I don't have a valid service that's selected. I can click this down and be able to see what valid services are available. And the validation check comes back saying it's a valid connection. So if I change it back over to my location, you'll see it gives me mine. And we can see that over here in this case, when we look at locations and we're seeing location AAA, we can then look at the services that were available, and those are the 3 that we're showing. Notice it did not show the ACH because we weren't setting up ACH. ACH has its own payment type, and it's the same thing. It would only show those that are valid for ACH. And once that payment type is set up and it says it's valid, then everything is okay for the user to start doing what Brett showed earlier. Does anybody have any questions about that part of it? If not, then I'm going to bring that back over to John.
All right, thank you, Todd. Appreciate that. Great job, both Todd and Brett, showing off the functionality. The only other topic on the agenda was just a very quick update on the development timeline. We have our current plan is to conclude phase 1, including all cash receipts functionality by February 12th. So that is the deadline for phase 1. And then starting February 15th or earlier, February 15th at the latest, we will start developing the technical specification for phase 2, and that will include quick invoices, click to pay, and get us all phase 2 functionality. And so that is our next step beyond phase 1, is to develop that tech spec and firm up the timeline for phase 2. So with that, that is the agenda for today, but we wanted to open it up. Does anybody have questions for our team on anything that we've seen today?
No, I don't mind. If you don't mind, I have one thing I was going to add on to what Brett had talked about on the pain points, because I know that was one of the issues that was brought up. If you don't have the current integrated solution for payment processing, you don't really have a way to keep up with deposits on a sales order. You'd have to have that as cash receipts coming in and have it on account, and then you'd have to apply that on account to the actual invoice once it goes through to be able to say that deposit is related to that invoice. So that's one thing that is a lot more complicated, because you're having to go through the steps of a cash receipts, going over to the account itself, and then once the invoice is updated, applying that amount to the invoice from the account. So there's multiple steps on that. You also don't have the ability to have a pre-auth. So if you're pre-authorizing on a sales order, nothing actually happens in Sage until it becomes an invoice. Once it becomes an invoice, then the actual financial transaction will happen. So by doing it in a standalone machine, there's nothing to relate that to in Sage saying it's a pre-auth or that's been authorized. And they would have to remember once it's become a invoice that authorization is then being applied to that invoice and that pre-auth that was for that invoice. So that's not going to be there. And so there's some of those pain points, as well as the only way of keeping credit cards in Sage is through a read-only vault that is provided by Sage for them to be able to pull up those credit cards. And they would have to write it down or at least key it in at that time. When you start to get into those things, customers start to do strange things like putting them in notes, and those notes may have key information that's not PCI compliant. And so you can relate some of the pain points of how are they keeping up with those compliancies now. If it's a standalone, are they storing those credit cards anywhere? Are they actually storing the CVV that they shouldn't be doing? What type of information are they putting in there? And by having an integrated solution, you're able to help eliminate a lot of that PCI compliancy information that's going to be there. So that's some of the things you can bring up if you're talking to a customer. I didn't know if you had anything else, Brett, to add on to that, but.
No, that was great. That was great.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Sure.
Anything else? Any other questions for the team?
I want to thank everybody.